Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for I'd Love to Take Orders From You, released in 1936. It's the 132nd in the series and it's directed by Tex Avery. A beautiful new restoration has shown up on the Looney Tunes Collector's Vault Volume 1 Blu-ray set. I have a link below to that set. And I'm so glad it's been restored because for the longest time it just looked really crummy. Now say what you want about this short, you can't deny it looks amazing in this restoration. And it even has its original title cards, but that's because this was never reissued under the Blue Ribbon program, a program where they ended up cutting out a lot of the opening titles. In case you haven't seen this one, it is under copyright, so I can't show you the full thing here on YouTube. So you have a scarecrow in a cornfield, doing his job, scaring away the hungry crows. He heads home and sees that his son would love to be a scarecrow too. He tries to teach him, but look, he's just a kid, he's got a lot to learn, but the kid is adamant that he wants to be a scarecrow, so he ends up sneaking out of the house, scares a few creatures successfully, but ends up struggling to scare a crow, I'm assuming the same one that we saw earlier in the short, but can't seem to do so. And in terms of trivia, I'll get the minor one out of the way. So you see a bit where as they're singing the song, the son says,
"Take it easy on the bell."
The father ends up conveniently hitting the gong so many times when the son is apparently failing at doing all those poses. So originally, we had on vaudeville certain talent shows, and if an act is so terrible, they'd be given the hook. You would have seen that in a few cartoons, I'm sure, but on the radio, you couldn't hear the hook. And so you have the Major Beau's Amateur Hour, which was like a talent show, and it actually featured a gong in it. Tex Avery actually revisits that idea in I'd Love to Singer, where you see the whole talent show contest at the end. So it's a similar idea here, except we're just doing it with the father and son. Now, before I continue, I'll just let you guys know as well that my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie tenor, he's always on these Merrie Melodies, so he can discuss the musical portion. So later on, after I cover the cartoon, he's going to cover the music because, again, we're still in that period of time where songs are being promoted by the Merrie Melodies program. But what's really fascinating about this short is that it doesn't quite look like a Tex Avery cartoon. Yes, it's got gags in it that you can clearly go, oh yeah, that's Tex. But this actually looks more like a Freleng short that he was doing around this time. So you don't get your fourth wall breaking, you don't get the extreme takes. And there's even a dispute as to which came first. Was it this one or Page Miss Glory? There's definitely some conflicting information as to which was worked on first. I've just gone by the actual release dates, but it's quite possible that this one was worked on first and then Page Miss Glory just happened to be finished earlier. I'm not sure. Either way, both this one and Page Miss Glory were the first Merrie Melodies shorts that Tex Avery did. And it's really fascinating because you had directors like Freleng. He would not so much toil away, but he would work on a lot of the black and white shorts, like he did a few Buddy shorts, for instance. But then he, quote unquote, graduated to doing the more expensive color Merrie Melodies shorts. Whereas Tex Avery, he barely directs a few black and whites, and automatically he was able to work on these color shorts, still amongst the Porky Pig shorts that he would still do. And that's interesting because you have other directors. You got Ben Hardaway, you got Jack King. You'd think that they would be promoted because they've done a lot more than Tex Avery, but it's quite possible that Schlesinger or someone else in the production team saw potential in Tex Avery, hence why they allowed him to make the color shorts, or Tex was just good at really selling himself and he managed to convince them to do it, or maybe a bit of both. It's one of those things that's lost to time. Either way, he's already doing color shorts very early on in his directing career at Warner's. But as mentioned, this is very close to what Freleng was doing at the time, so my guess is that he was told to do something similar to what Frizz was doing, but he still was able to add his touches. And no doubt after this, and the theatre owner's responses to his other shorts, Avery would have been perhaps allowed more freedom to do more funny business in his shorts, and that in turn would have likely inspired Freleng to do more funny business in his shorts, so it was like a flow-on effect. So as we go on towards the end of 1936-37, Freleng's Merrie Melodies become a lot more funnier, and Avery continues to push boundaries on his side. But during this period of time when the Merrie Melodies had the song promotion requirements still going on, you do notice that these shorts are a little bit more, for lack of a better word, tamer to what he was doing at Porky Pig around this time. On the Porky Pig shorts, he was able to push the boundaries a bit more and experiment a lot more. Part of that could just be because it was a low-budgeted series, and he was able to get away with that sort of thing, whereas with the Merrie Melodies, there's that prestige factor there, and no doubt the cost of 3-strip Technicolor would have been a factor as well. Still, these earlier Tex Avery efforts are quite enjoyable, and as the song requirement went away, Tex ended up doing more wilder stuff in his Merrie Melodies entries anyway. Now, in terms of voice acting, the only credit we really know at this point, and this comes from Keith Scott's wonderful Cartoon Voices book, is that Tommy Bond does the voice of the young Scarecrow. We don't know who does the voice of the mum and dad here, but Keith does mention that this is one of the biggest mysteries that he is hoping to solve one day, and if it is solved, I will add that in the description below. Regardless of who actually did it, it's such a wonderful voice. There's just something about that voice. It just adds to the whole rural theme of this one. And remember, this is the 1930s. There were so many people still living in the rural areas around this time. Some of you might be on the younger side, but might be wondering, why do so many of these earlier animated shorts seemingly take place in rural areas or farms or in the middle of nowhere, more or less? That's because a lot of the population were scattered all throughout the United States. Yeah, during the Great Depression of the 1930s, a lot of folks would end up heading into the cities to find work. And this is something that could be a whole topic in of itself. But that's the reason why, in case some of you were wondering and weren't familiar with 1930s history. But let's take a look at this short from start to finish. And again, this is more or less like a Freleng entry, but with a few Tex Avery touches working within the framework. So let's take a look at it. And right away, we got a nice little opening where we see one of our main characters, the dad Scarecrow, just standing there, scaring away the crow, establishing what he does for a living. That's his job. So I guess he's got it good in the Great Depression. He's able to work. But this also illustrates a few differences as to how Freleng would have approached this versus what Avery does here. So a lot of the funny moments in this short come from both the really strong poses and the exaggerated facial expressions. So the animation is more or less subdued or very straightforward in this one, but honestly it makes these moments of strong poses with the really funny facial expressions come through even better. So it's a job well done, the Scarecrow's done for the day, and again, this is something else that Freleng probably wouldn't have done in his short versus Avery. We see a clock, but Avery has to try and squeeze in a gag whenever he could. So instead of having a regular clock, he's just got an hourglass on his arm. How this would work, I have no idea. But it's interesting that this watch has a little strap on the bottom, but there's no strap around the top. Well, you know what they say. I hope somebody got fired for that blunder. No, I kid. It's fine. It's only when you freeze frame it that you notice that, whoopsie, they didn't put the other part of the strap. Big whoop. So we got this wonderful walking cycle of the dad's Scarecrow returning home from work. One of the credited animators is Bob Clampett and the other one is Cecil Surrey. This was just standard practice at the time where they would credit only 2 animators, but there were certainly other animators here like Virgil Ross and Chuck Jones. I'm not sure who does that walking cycle, but regardless, it is amazing. So he walks home, sees his son through the window, and decides to play along with his son being oh so scary. And say what you want about this short. Yes, it's not a particularly funny Tex Avery short you're going to normally get with him, but it's such a touching little entry. Avery would be more known for the wild and wacky stuff, yes, but he's also very good at doing the very sweet moments like this. He will do something similar in I Love to Singer, but even at MGM, if you look at One Cab's Family and Little Johnny Jet, there are definitely plenty of heartwarming moments that are present all throughout his shorts, and I've seen this sort of stuff. And honestly, it's probably more touching to me because I'm a dad myself, and I will do that sort of thing with my son and my daughter as well, so it's definitely relatable. We see this wonderful family life, he sees his wife, and the son just wants to learn how to become a scarecrow like his dad, so clearly he really looks up to him, which again is very charming. So here is where we get the song promotion, and while this scene is cute, I like it, it does kind of stop the short in its tracks, and it wouldn't surprise me that if Avery didn't have to promote the song, he probably would have either cut this bit out completely, or he would have done an all-out humorous bit within it, or maybe use similar ideas here. Still, for what it is, it's interesting hearing the song and with alternate lyrics, and again, my good friend Manny Cruz, he's going to go through the song portion later on. And another great thing about this restoration is just all the details in the background. All of this is done with watercolors, and it just amazes me when you see a good watercolor artist produce wonderful work such as this. It truly is a feast for the eyes. And yes, while this song bit does stop the short dead in its tracks, again, in my opinion, Avery at least varies things up with the directing by showing different shots like the sun through the legs, a bottom-up shot from the sun's point of view, So at least it's varied enough, it's just not directed in a very static way. So now the father tries to teach his son how to do the poses, but keeps gonging him out.
All right. That's enough for now.
Is that kind of mean of the dad? Maybe a little, but again, we saw earlier on he does the whole play acting with his son anyway. So there are times where you can play act with a child, but other times you gotta be realistic with them and say, look, you still need to work on things, but it's done in a loving way. It's not like he's yelled at him or put him down saying, you will never be a scarer like me, or anything along those lines. It just happens to be an overeager child wanting to follow in the footsteps of his dad. So it's bedtime, and in the shot where we see the silhouette of the boy getting his clothes changed into his pajamas, we can see subtly that, yes, it is getting towards evening, and as we cut to the next shot, it's now become night fairly quickly. And then as the mother says goodnight, the boy decides to do his nightly prayer, and he wants to be just like his dad. So, again, this is really cute stuff. But the rooster crows, it's the dawn of a new day, the boy ends up sneaking out. All the while his dad's still sleeping, snoring away. And again, a lot of the Avery stuff is very subtle here, and this is probably a great example of that. Maybe Frizz would have done this around this point, something like this, but still, this is Avery trying to insert what he could within the framework he needed to work under. So we now get a bit of a build-up. The boy walks along and tests his scarecrowing skills with various different animals. And once again, just like his dad, the posing and the facial expressions really sell this part. And again, it's not something I think Frizz would have done. Just like when he scares that squirrel, who's just tapping away at a nut for reasons. And by the way, one thing I did notice is as the boy is approaching that squirrel, you can see in a few frames that there's no paint on the squirrel. It's like it's flaked off. That's how expensive these 3-strip Technicolor films were to shoot. So chances are they probably in a few frames had some paint scrape off and it was just shot, but they couldn't go back and reshoot it. But given that's only a few frames, it would just be a case of, hey, no one's going to really notice, let's just continue on. But with the squirrel, this is probably the most Tex Avery part of this entire short, where the squirrel runs into his tree, goes into an elevator, goes up on the very top of the tree, and just continues doing what he's doing. He scares a rabbit, the rabbit just bounces around different holes, and interestingly enough, later on, Avery would do a Bugs Bunny gag that uses this very idea of bugs going into various holes. But here it's just straightforward, which is to be expected. But we get a payoff, where the boy is now in the field where his dad works and decides to be the scarecrow his old man is. The crow peels the corn like a banana and doesn't think much of the sun at all. But what's interesting is that earlier on, where the boy does the scary facial expressions to the other animals, they're a lot more extreme, whereas here, they're very subdued. And I think that just adds to it. So the crow ends up scaring the boy, who runs off, and we get a bit of the good old Tex Avery speed here, where the corn is torn apart. And the chase is on. I'm not sure why the crow would continue to chase him, given that he could just go back and eat some more corn, but anyway, so the crow chases along. We even get a beautiful bird's eye view as well that goes on for a brief moment. So again, Avery's at least trying different things, even if it's just a simple chase scene. But the bird is stopped dead in his tracks, where the boy thinks he's finally chased him away, but it's actually his dad doing the work. And again, this is quite charming. The dad's not even that mad. He just says, all right, your mother's looking for you, let's go back. And that's it. We cut to that night where the dad is reading a newspaper. The boy is describing what happened during the day, but we end up with a cute little dad type joke where he does a shadow puppets, making his fingers look like a crow, being a bit cheeky and scaring his son. And that's all, folks. Now, I've been prattling on for long enough. My good friend Manny Cruz is going to go through the musical portion of this short after taking the orders part of the title literally and trying to make fun of my Aussie accent. To be fair, I make fun of his with his dogs and coffee. So indulge him for about a minute. I decided to leave it in there. I thought it was pretty funny, but you can always skip ahead a minute if you get tired of hearing his version of an Aussie accent. So take it away, Manny.
So I'd like to take an order from your food. Let's see what we got on the menu. We got pullover, and let me have a little barramundi. That looks real nice. Fairy bread, yeah, for dessert. And, Sydney rock oysters, those look lovely. Meat pies, really hits the spot. And don't forget kangaroo steak. We gotta throw some prawns. Kind of like shrimp on the barbie, but this stereotypical voice is... Okay, this is... Oh, emu meat. That actually looks kind of good. Yum, yum, yummy. Woo! So me trying to order some food from Australia clearly failed. See what I did there? Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Grilled bugs? I know it's a source of protein, but that's fascinating. Roast lamb? Anzac biscuit. Okay, I think I've gone down the wabbit hole. Ooh, vanilla actually looks... All right, enough about talk. As Krusty the Clown once said, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So this is revenge, Anthony, for all the times you made fun of my hot dogs and my coffee and my slice of pizza. So, whenever you want to come here to the States... Maybe you have to wait a few years, unfortunately. I'll treat you to a nice slice of pizza and get some coffee. And then, of course, when I ever go to Australia, I would like to try that vanilla slice and the meat pies and the kangaroo steak. And okay, this bit's going on too far. Feel free to write in the comments how I need to seriously practice my Australian accent. So yeah. Hi everyone, this is Emmanuel, Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, coming at you with the latest edition of... It's time for Manny's Music Time with music trivia for you today. Bum! For the 1936 Merrie Melody cartoon, I'd Love to Take Orders from You, directed by Tex Avery, with musical direction by Norman Spencer. So let's jump right into the musical discussion for this cartoon. So let's see if I got this right. The music talk is ready. My talent would be steady if I only had a brain. See what I did there? And if you don't get the reference, of course, I'm singing If I Only Had a Brain with some alternate lyrics that was sung by the Scarecrow in the 1939 classic MGM film, which through corporate acquisitions, now owned by Warner Brothers, coincidentally, The Wizard of Oz. And how appropriate, because this cartoon is about a father and a son Scarecrow, not just, the Scarecrow who wanted a brain in the film. Just go watch Wizard of Oz. Don't listen to me. Well, actually, you're stuck listening to me, so you might as well hear what I got to say. All right, for real this time. So obviously, the cartoon starts off with I Think You're Ducky, which was the Merrie Melodies theme song at the time, and very soon it'll be retired for the more familiar Merrily We Roll Along, coming very soon in this year, 1936. So the cartoon starts off with I'd Love to Take Orders from You. Obviously, that's the name of the cartoon and the song that this particular cartoon is pitching for, Warner Brothers to sell some sheet music and records.
I'll be the teacher.
I'll cook the stew. Well, come on, Dad. I'll take orders from you.
Now here's the first pose.
I'll try it, too, because I'd like to take orders from you.
This song was written by the Lennon and McCartney of the Warner Brothers studio. We have Harry Warren and Al Dubin. If you want to learn more about those two guys, please check out A Great Big Bunch of You for Harry Warren and Al Dubin, the girl at the ironing board. So the song itself comes from the 1935 Warner Brothers feature Shipmates Forever, starring Dick Powell and Ruby Keeler. And Powell sings the song in the film itself. Now, where do you hear it? Obviously, you hear it during the opening titles. You hear it when Pa comes home from a hard day at work scaring off those nasty crows. And then he sings it with his son in the middle of the cartoon.
Here's one to try that'll make crows fly. I use it every day.
When a crow flies down, he'll get this frown. It'll scare any crow away.
Speaking of which, it's kind of weird watching this one because I have not seen this one in a long time, and it's finally great to see it looking so beautifully restored on the Looney Tunes Collector's Choice Volume 1, because I was so used to seeing the faded print. Probably the last time I saw this one was about 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it looks way nicer, but it's still it doesn't feel like a Tex Avery film. I mean, around this time you had The Blowout already, and obviously Gold Diggers of 49, and those feel like Tex Avery cartoons. cartoons. And then, later in the year, you have, of course, the classic I Love to Sing, Milk and Money, The Village Smithy, Porky the Rainmaker. But this kind of sticks out. Like, it still feels like a Freleng Merrie Melody. I mean, it's still better than what Jack King was doing. Sorry, Jack. But I think the only gag in this cartoon that felt Avery-ish was when the Wabbit, or the rabbit, so it was a few years before Bugs Bunny came along, and he hopped in a hole after being scared, and he kept hopping through the different holes. So I was like, that is Avery-ish.
Now you try this one.
That's what I'll do. 'Cause I'd just love to take orders from you.
So, after that, you hear the song Air Flight by J.S. Schnek. If you want to know more about that composer, who the Warner Brothers music directors did quote a lot, especially Carl Stalling, please check out my green fedora for more information about Schnek. You hear that one, coincidentally, when the crow is flying in the air. Air flight, crows fly, birds, ah ha 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 ha. So yeah, the crow's flying around, and then he tries to cause trouble, and Pa does his job, scares the crow away, and that's the end of that cue. Then afterwards you hear, of course, a classic Home Sweet Home, written by John Howard Payne and Henry Rowley Bishop. The song itself is over 200 years old, comes from 1823.
No, sir. I wasn't a bit afraid of that old crow, Mom. I just stood there like this, and pretty soon down flew a great big crow.
If you want to learn more about the song itself, please check out the commentary for Why Do I Dream Those Dreams? And you hear this one when Pa is looking at his house, he's walking home from work. And you also hear it at the end of the cartoon when Junior is bragging about, oh, I scared that crow away, and I'll tell you, in front of his mother. And what's funny is one of the cues in this cartoon is used in another later cartoon of a similar scenario where characters bragging, they were after me and there were tons of them and I immortalized them. Obviously not like that, but I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, same cue in this cartoon with that other one as well. But yeah, he's bragging to his mom and his dad calls out his nonsense, and he does a really good hand puppet of a crow to scare his son. Give him a nice little slice of humble pie. So the next cue you hear is Rockabye Baby on the treetop. This is an English folk song. It's been around for several hundred years. It's an English folk song. It was published around 1765 in London, and with different lyrics, different versions over the years. But, you hear it. You've heard that melody a million times throughout your life. You hear that when Junior has to go to bed, and Mama's getting him ready for bed, changing his clothes and whatnot. So, of course, you hear Rockabye Baby.
Sleep tight, Junior.
And last but not least, so this is the cue that shares a little lineage with another cartoon. So the name of the song is called Dear Little Boy of Mine by Ernest Ball and J.K. Brennan. And you hear this when Junior is praying in bed. Bless Mama and bless Daddy, and I want to be big and strong like my daddy.
Be good to my daddy, and be good to my mama, and please, no fooling. Make me a big scarecrow, just like my dad.
Now, that cue is also used in Now That Summer Is Gone. You hear Papa Squirrel coming out of the house. I can remember off the top of my head. You hear, what's the matter with Father? Bum, bum, bum. And then when he starts cleaning his glasses, that's when you start hearing Dear Little Boy of Mine.
Junior, where are you, Junior? Junior?
And of course, the end of the cartoon where the Papa Squirrel catches his son gambling again, obviously in disguise. And then Junior's like, oh, they got me. I was surrounded by them. And then in this cartoon, you got Junior bragging to his mom about how he slayed that evil crow all by himself. And of course, Dad is like, all right, kid, go ahead, keep talking. I'll give you a lesson very soon. So that was kind of neat. I don't know if that was intentional, but, this cartoon was scored by Norman Spencer. The other one's scored by Carl Stalling. So they drew upon a similar idea to get the point across. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this cartoon. It's been a while since I've seen it. It looks so great. Is it the greatest cartoon in the world? No. But, it's cool to see these early Merrie Melodies in beautiful HD. Obviously, hopefully the goal one day is to have every single Warner Brothers short from 1930 to 1969 restored. Please keep supporting the official releases. You have Collector's Vault Volume 2, which is coming out on March 24th, which is 2 weeks after my birthday. Yay! So if you want to get me an early birthday gift, hopefully Anthony will put this commentary up soon. Again, I'm recording this in February 17th, 2026. So you got 3 weeks to get me a gift, or I don't know, maybe 2 weeks by the time you upload this. So thanks for listening, folks. Thank you for supporting the work that I do in this channel. Obviously, thank you, Anthony, and thank you, everyone, for supporting his amazing work. Please follow me on social media at the Tuning Tenor, TheTooneyTenor, for updates of my life as a musician, as well as a multifaceted enthusiast of many, many things. One day it could be about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Ghostbusters or the Avatar Legends universe, The Simpsons, and obviously my deep love and lifelong fandom of these wonderful Warner Brothers cartoons. Good old Looney Tunes and Merrie Melodies of the heyday, and it's glad to see them coming back in popularity with the various physical releases. They're now on TCM, Turner Classic Movies, which is a great place to have them in their proper context. And of course, you got no excuse. Download Tubi. You can watch 800 of these cartoons, including this one on there. So thanks for listening, folks. Have a great day. Don't be scared by a scarecrow. Don't scare yourself. I mean, I scare myself every day when I look at the mirror. So there you go. Oh, goodness. I don't know how I get through the day with my corny jokes. All right, folks. See you soon, and that's all, folks.
Thank you, Manny. So if you go into this one expecting to see one of Avery's wildest shorts, you're not going to get that here. You've got your few moments, that's clearly Avery, but this is clearly the sort of thing that Freleng was already doing, but Avery manages to add his own little touch to it. It would really be from shorts like I'd Love to Singer, where they would still kind of look like what Freleng was doing, but it would completely have Avery's touch in them. But we all have to start somewhere. A lot of times you got to work within the rules, within the framework, before you can really start bending the rules and doing your own thing. And this is what I call one of those transitional shorts where you can see that things are slowly starting to change at the studio. Avery had already established that Porky Pig could actually be funny through his few shorts that he's done already, and shortly he's going to establish that Merrie Melodies can be funny too. Because up until now, let's not kid ourselves, a lot of the time it was just simple song promotion, and lately even some pretty colors, and that's it. But this one's a charming one. I can't really find myself giving this a low score or anything, just because it's not really a wild Tex Avery short like he would do later on. There's certainly much better ones in this effort, but as a dad, I don't know, I just find it really charming. It's a 7 out of 10 short for me, and it absolutely shines in this new restoration. But I want you guys to let me know what you think of this one. Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's another one off the list for me to cover in the Looney Tunes project. So how about that? Alright, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
Just